Hello guys, welcome to our channel. For today's video, we are going to learn about the Earth's atmosphere and the relationship of the Earth and the Sun. To start with, we are going to learn about the vertical structure of the atmosphere. What is atmosphere? Before we proceed to our topic, we should know what is atmosphere. Atmosphere is the layer of gases that surrounds the Earth. The atmosphere might be invisible, but there's a lot going on up there. Layers of the atmosphere. Earth's atmosphere has four primary layers. From the bottom layer, where we live, is the troposphere, extending to the stratosphere, and the third layer, which is the mesosphere, and the highest layer, the thermosphere. Troposphere. Troposphere is the bottom layer of the atmosphere. This is also the site of all weather on Earth. We are all living in the troposphere. The troposphere is by far the wettest layer of the atmosphere. The temperature decrease in the troposphere is called the environmental lapse rate. To determine the actual environmental lapse rate as well as gather information about vertical changes in pressure, wind, and humidity. Stratosphere. It extends from the top of troposphere to about 50 kilometers. Temperatures increase in the stratosphere because it is in this layer that the atmosphere's ozone is concentrated. It contains about 20% of Earth's gas. The top spot of the stratosphere is the hottest because it generates a lot of heat. Airplanes and other aircraft fly on this layer. Mesosphere. Temperatures again decrease with height. Mesosphere is the coldest layer of the atmosphere, about negative 130 degrees Fahrenheit. It becomes cold enough to freeze water vapor in its atmosphere into the ice clouds. It is located above the stratosphere. Thermosphere. The fourth layer extends outward from the mesopoles and has no well-defined upper limit. A layer that contains only a tiny fraction of the atmosphere's mass. Temperatures get extremely hot. It can reach up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, almost 300 miles away from the mesosphere. And now, we will proceed to the Earth and the Sun relationship. It is the Earth's relationship to the Sun and the amount of light it receives that is responsible for the seasons and biodiversity. Earth's motion. Earth has two principal motions. The Earth's rotation axis is tilted relative to the plane of its orbit around the Sun. The Earth's revolve around the Sun in 1 year, and it's called revolution. So mainly, Earth's motion is the rotation and revolution. Rotation. Our planet rotates once every 24 hours, producing the daily cycle of daylight and darkness. At any moment, half of Earth is experiencing daylight and the other half darkness. Our planet Earth rotates around its axis from west to east. An axis is an imaginary line that runs from the North Pole to the South Pole. If you look on the Earth from the northern hemisphere, it rotates counterclockwise. Revolution. Revolution refers to the movement of Earth in its orbit around the Sun. For Earth to make one complete revolution around the Sun, it takes 365 days. Hundreds of years ago, most people believed that Earth was stationary in space and that the Sun and stars revolves around the planet. Today, we know that Earth is traveling at nearly 113,000 kilometers or 70,000 miles per hour in an elliptical orbit around the Sun. Earth's orientation. Earth's axis is not perpendicular to the plane of its orbit around the Sun. Instead, it is tilted 23.5 degrees from the perpendicular. This is called the inclination of the axis. If the axis were not inclined, we would have no seasonal changes. As Earth journeys around the Sun, the orientation of Earth's axis to the Sun rays is constantly changing. Seasons. The Earth's axis is tilted from perpendicular to the plane of the ecliptic by 23.45 degrees. This tilting is what gives us the four seasons of the Earth: the spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Since the axis is tilted, different parts of the globe are oriented towards the sun at different times of the year. Solstices and equinoxes. On June 21 or 22, Earth is in a position where the axis in the northern hemisphere is tilted 23.5 degrees towards the sun. At this time, the vertical rays of the sun strike 23.5 degrees north latitude, a latitude known as the tropic Cancer. In northern hemisphere, the March equinox is called the spring equinox, while the September equinox is called the autumnal or fall equinox. In the southern hemisphere, the reverse is true. The dates slightly vary due to leap years and other factors. On about December 21 or 22, Earth is in opposite position with the sun's vertical rays sinking at 23.5 degrees south latitude. This parallel is known as the Tropic of Capricorn. The equinox and the solstice marks the Earth's transition through different seasons. The equinox marks the time when daylight and nighttime are approximately the same length, with solstice occurring on the longest and shortest days in terms of the sunlight. The equinox in the northern hemisphere occurs twice a year around spring and autumn. The solstice marks summer and winter seasons. The farther you are north of the equator on June 21st, the longer the period of daylight you reach. The Arctic Circle 66.5 degrees, the length of daylight in 24 hours. This is the land of the midnight sun, which does not set for about 6 months at the North Pole. Thank you for listening.